Usually I say thank you for being here, but you basically, forced to be here, so yeah. And then that's the first thing to apologize. The second thing to apologize is just like I have exactly more or less the same slides from Nick Tune this morning. And I'm starting from the book Accelerate. I guess this is reinforcing the message, just like this book is a fantastic survey on a statistical level of things that worked in the IT, and well, let's look at it. Like the first thing that they said is the whole DevOps. Actually, the people writing the book were coming from the DevOps field. Plus, the main author, Nicole Fosgren, is a statistician. And they combined the research, and the first evidence is just like the whole thing about DevOps is actually working. I guess some of you are going to be surprised that I'm talking about DevOps because, I'm the sticky note guy, and I'm planning to deploy stickies to production in the cloud sooner or later. I have tools for that, but before my tools are working. The thing that was really interesting about the reason why DevOps is working, we got to drill a little bit more about it. So the whole thing about DevOps is not only just like giving roles and so on. It's just like how frequently you can enable a release cycle. So it's about the tooling, it's about the roles, but the goal is to go quickly and repeat. The other important thing is just like what is the lead time from commit to deploy. And other metrics that we're using, the recovery from downtime, and the failure rate. Let's look at the numbers. These are the most important thing. Like code deployments from fast runners to low runners up to 46 times more frequently. I need to look at the numbers. Up to 400 times faster lead time. I mean, it's not 2 times faster or 50% faster. I'm 400 times faster. It means like I might be learning 400 times more in the same unit of time. It's mind-blowing in terms of learning rate. So the other numbers, yes, were also more really, really interesting. But DevOps is working. Okay. So what to think about how do we do about it? How do we react? And well, that's a typical corporate reaction. Just like DevOps is working, we just hire some DevOps. So people go on LinkedIn, they add DevOps on their job description, and suddenly the problem is solved. So easy stuff. Okay, what are we gonna do next? Well, let's talk about microservices. Talking about microservices, the thing in the book was there was no clear relationship between microservices and successful organization. So correlation was clear between more frequently adopted, but not so much differences. So my summary when talking strictly about microservices, just like microservices by themselves are not enough to make your company successful. Okay, good point. Why is that? I mean, microservices, yesterday Eric Evans was showing the bandwagon with all the possible correlation of fun and noise and music and all the things. Look like fun, but at the same time, it just means like there might be an idea at the beginning, and there might be interpretation and misinterpretation and under the same label. And one of the key conversations that I had in last month was this one, basically. I was talking with a friend in Denmark, and he was giving me this summary. I was the only person in a microservices conference that was using event-driven. So what were the other people doing? And the other feedback I got to my colleague in Italy, just like, basically my market is now like companies that went microservices, and they're asking me a way to coordinate deployment of multiple microservices at the same time. And they didn't even realize the irony of the question. So And they're paying a lot for this. So maybe that's the idea of the bandwagon. So getting back to this, it's just like, my summary is just like microservices at the end are just like SOA. That's what some people might say. And we screwed up SOA. We can screw up microservices exactly in the same way. And so it's not about the technology. Well, I still like microservices. I'm going to get back to them because there's a lot of good stuff in that. But the power of misinterpretation is still there. So this is a part which is really, really scary for me. Some other parts were working, and then I'm getting back into something that Nick Thune was saying this morning. Loosely coupling is one of the things that was actually working really, really well. So it was not exactly the technology, but in terms of architecture, the organization that were investing in loose coupling, okay, that thing was actually paying off. And this goes down to the next question. Weren't microservices and loosely coupled the same thing? Okay, yeah, I do agree with your head shaking movement. Well, they should have been, but. So my quick recommendation in this area, I think this one is something you would like to remember. I'll turn my monolith entities into microservice. I'm going to follow some tutorial on the web. Yeah, take the customer table, make a microservices around it, deploy it, and then enjoy the joy of the dependencies and the nightmare that you can have after this. So do not cut microservices around data. And that's what I have to say about this area. Let's go back to the book. And the other differentiating factors. And the next thing they're talking about is just like, actually, the culture was a pretty good indicator of possibility of success within an IT-driven organization. So what did they mean for culture? Well, they had something more sophisticated than my average, which was the Western classification. On the top one, we have the pathological culture, power-oriented, really, really, if you've been reading, it's just like Reinventing Organization from Frederic Laloux is the fighting organization, the very, very low end of the spectrum. Bureaucratic, rules-oriented are the bigger one where, you just define procedures. You have to follow that. We got to make sure everybody's following the rules. But the ones that were successful were the ones that were classified as generative, where people and ideas were valued according to the results that they were performed, but experiments were kind of supported and rewarded. Okay. So this classification about culture was one of the other key factors. Okay, this is cool. And for me, it's just like, it was at the moment where I kind of detached from the book, because if you use a culture as a differentiator, well, then things, again, are getting weird. I'm going to get more explicit with the next slide. Because for many people, the idea of culture is something which is a given. So the moment people are speaking about culture, well, that's our company culture. Sorry. I don't know how to get that. And in Italy, we use a lot of word mentality. Oh, nothing can work here because, it's Italian mentality. And we use it as an alibi, like, nothing going to work like this, while people in another country are doing exactly the same thing and it works. But it feels like, for some reason, this cannot work here. And I don't really buy this bullshit anymore, because I don't think that is the case. And I will get more specific about it. The other problem for me is, as a software architect, or whatever I am right now, the idea of a culture is something which is supposed to be separated and independent from the architecture or from the organization and for other stuff. It's just like the culture is basically somebody else's responsibility. Oh, that's a nice trick, and just not my fault, end of the story. Okay, let's have a beer. Well, sponsors are paying. what do we do about the culture? I mean, it felt like, okay, we have a good discussion, we spot the problem, what do we do? Nothing is a cultural problem, okay. So let me give my definition of a culture. I'm not a scientist in this field, so it's not a precise definition. It's probably not even a good one. It's probably not even a definition, but it might be actionable. So my definition of culture is the cumulative effect of a winning behavior within a given context. So winning examples and imitation will be triggering some global reaction. Okay, that's fuzzy. Let's give you an example. So let's talk about bus tickets. And this is exactly the type of bus I could have in Bologna, where I was doing university at that time. And a friend of mine was actually trolling the system, was trying to see how many times he could get on the bus without paying the ticket, basically. And there's something in the structure of this bus which is, well, let me check if I can do this. Yes. You can get from the front door, but you can basically get in from this door and from this door. And the other thing that might happen is you cannot buy the ticket on the bus. You're supposed to jump on the bus already with your ticket. The ticket can be purchased in shops and vending machines, but maybe they are not exactly visible when you're buying them. And yes, you have multiple entry points. The reason, because it's going to take so much time if everybody has to buy a ticket before going on. So there is traffic and many reasons. So you can go in and go out in a messy way. And which means that it's very easy to jump on the bus without a ticket. And it's not exactly that high risk. I mean, there are days where controllers are just showing up and it's just like, I mean, there's a lot of them. It's just like they are arresting narcos because I mean, university students recognize them. They know them by name. So, there's controllers. Let's get out from the other doors. You need at least 6 controllers to catch 3 students. And it's an interesting game, but kind of complicated. Then you can go to some other nation, and you can only get on the bus entering from the front door. And this is what we see. What we see is just like you have an eye-to-eye moment between the bus driver and the passenger. And you can buy the ticket, and you can stamp the ticket, and somebody's looking at you. Or you can get even, that was amazing for me, we were in Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, on the tram, there's actually the driver, and you're supposed to get on the tram from the central door, where you have a ticket person selling you the ticket right there. And one day we were jumping on the tram from the front door, and the driver was saying something like, "Gentlemen, the ticket, please." And everybody was looking at us, so it was almost impossible to cheat. We were going to make the ticket. We felt a little bit of ethical pressure because now everybody's looking at us. But he said, "Gentlemen," so we acted like gentlemen and paid the ticket. And even funnier, the next day, we went on the same tram, and we went to the ticket, and the lady for the ticket said, "Oh, you're foreign. That's for free today." First time in my life, somebody offered me a bus ticket. Really weird. But if you look at the scenario, there was something in the structure of the bus that was making things completely different. Payment on the bus enforced a single entry point. You have to go from the front. If I don't pay, I mean, the bus driver could actually not even start and say, like, "No, you have to pay." And then the conversation is visible, and the embarrassment for the person without a ticket could be really, really tough. In general, given just this little switch with the door, somebody might still be cheating, but then cheating is for very, very high-risk takers for a little money, so you just don't do this. You pay the ticket, end of the story. So to me, this is one of the things where it's not about mentality, or it's about what is the situation, what is the thing which is making the winning behavior. The person not paying is a loser here, completely. While my friend basically ended the student year saying that statistically, I'm not paying the bus ticket ever again, because I'm actually saving 60% of the money, because I get caught only 3 times per year, that's a fine, yeah. That's a number. So winning behavior, imitation, that's the thing I'm looking at. And but what I wanted to say, now let's get back into the software world, is this takeaway for me. So these are design choices. These design choices are defining interaction. This interaction will shape the culture. I'm going to give you a quickest possible example is if we are sharing something between 2 or 3 teams, well, we need to have a lot of meetings before changing stuff. We need to coordinate releases. We need to plan together. And suddenly we are inside an organization which is driven by meetings and not by coding, which becomes really, really annoying, frustrating, and so on. And so in a culture which is driven by meeting, well, who is the winner? Oh, the person negotiating stuff and not the person designing stuff. So, yeah, kind of complicated stuff. A more precise example might be this one. Am I the only one in my team doing TDD? Have you ever been in this scenario? Or DDD also, the only person? I mean, sometimes you cannot have winning practices. If you're the only one doing TDD, means like you're writing tests, everybody else is ignoring them, and the next morning your tests are broken because of somebody else's commit. And so you're not a winning behavior. You cannot really get followers because you're actually a double loser if you add more tests and people are breaking it. Because like you're spending more time correcting your tests, somebody else is breaking them. Like you're not a role model. You're not the person people would like to imitate. You're just coursing every single morning. Who broke my test? Well, funny guy. And so that's not a winning behavior in this scenario. So for thinking about constraints, system design, and behaviors, I realized there was some moment that I was making decisions really, really quickly and realizing this is wrong, this is never going to work, this is a failure. But I'm trying to shrink some of the thinking tools I'm using for capturing this type of scenario. So tool number 1 is what I call the pink check. And when I say pink, I actually mean Daniel Pink and the little but powerful message that comes from the book Drive, and even more concentrated and even more kicking the butt is the link to the video. 15 minutes that could actually have a big impact on your professional life. What Daniel Pink is saying, just like basically, talking about what is motivating people, we are doing things for these 3 reasons. We want to have autonomy, we want to have mastery, we want to be good in what we do, and we want to have a purpose. Okay, so I'm trying to use this pink check on some scenario that I encountered in my professional career. And scenario number 1, the builders team. So these guys, they were some of the top 3 team in Italy. Well, one of the first doing XP in the right way. They built a product. The product was successful. The startup grew. They were the builders. They were the heroes creating this product and all this stuff. They had positive feedback loops, meaning that they really cared about their baby. Their product had bugs. I mean, it was something new, so it was not really perfect. But whenever there was something wrong, somebody was cleaning it up, correcting, releasing a new version with the test and all the stuff. So the product became more and more robust and, yes, good stuff. Let's see how this performed on the pink check. What about the autonomy? The autonomy was great. Just like the team built the whole stuff. They knew every corner of it, and it's tested. They went TDD from the very beginning. Okay, talking about mastery, as I said, one of the best teams in Italy. They were really good. They kept improving the code base. They changed, they refactored, and all this stuff. Well, the purpose, they loved it. I mean, also it was one of the best workplaces in Italy, and really, really nice place to be. So cool. And if you're thinking about it in DDD terms, you can really smell the idea of, bounded context and a safe place to be, everything under control. Cool stuff. Then, let's see another scenario. let's call it the cage team, and it's actually the same team as before. And only 6 months later, for some, the company got acquired, the new business management wanted to go for a new product, and they had this fantastic idea. Well, it took us a lot of time to go for the new product. This time, instead of starting from scratch, we're going to speed up operation by starting from this third-party platform, which has been proven successful in some other scenario. And so it was basically a conformist on top of this third-party platform. And 6 months later, I was basically invited to run a retrospective trying to pick up the pieces because the team was completely falling apart. So let's see what happened. In terms of autonomy, autonomy was gone. So basically, similar to something that was described this morning, the developers were taking all the blame. The blame was in the third-party platform. They didn't own the code. So they took all the blame, and the only thing they could do were hack on top of the third-party platform. And talking about mastery, that was even more embarrassing. So they got some consultants from the third party providing the platform, and they were suggesting something like, oh, just do cut and paste here, just put this in another file and touch this, and forget about the test, you just don't need this, and has been working with another customer. So they felt like this person is insulting me. I was close to 100% coverage, and they are suggesting me to do dirty things. And no, and they were also paid a lot more than they were, so just to add more embarrassment. And talking about purpose, well, the purpose was gone. Just like, we're staying here, still has a good salary, but we're just taking all the blame and not any reward. So actually, the situation was pretty bad. The business people was actually good. They didn't realize that they were breaking something fundamental at this level. And, but it was kind of too late to recover. Getting back to what we know as software architect, DDD community, it made me think about some more stuff that it's not really described that much in terms of bounded context, which is not only a unit of language consistency or a model with a purpose, but it's also a unit of clear responsibility. So even in my past project, the most successful one, we didn't have dependencies, or we had some dependencies, but we made it clear that external things could not break our code. So a bounded context became a place where there might be only one reason why we have a bug here, and this reason is us. And since we are a good team, we won't have bugs. Okay. And so we started doing a lot of work to make this better and better. And the idea of purpose became something like a responsibility and building good stuff. Okay, this message was telling me that I should accelerate a little, but that was in the first slide, so so the thing that gets something like really, really important, a team in a bounded context with a purpose. This is a picture of my big picture EventStorming, which is a very complicated way sometimes just to see this, to see at the end, what are we doing? Who are we making happy at the end of the flow? This is a little thing that made a lot of difference. Whenever I had the chance to work with a team that had not so many dependencies on the outside and a clear purpose and a clear mission, well, that was the best place to be. But depending on many other sources, not exactly good. Second tool. I'm actually begging for some minutes because I'm never going to make it for the exact timing. So I can pay a round of beer if you give me 5 minutes. So let's go for the feedback check. Let's look at which are the feedback channels. How do we know we're doing a good job? Is there any way we can do we're doing a good job? Or it's just like velocity, a number of story points delivered for iteration or stuff like that? That's not real feedback. The other thing is, how does good and bad feedback arrive? And how long should I wait for that feedback? Okay, sorry. So let's look at DevOps from this side. Like, the feedback comes from user and metrics. The feedback is a real one. It's a user behavior. It's exactly what the market is telling us about our stuff. And quick, right after we release. And the other thing is mistakes are removed quickly. Lower cognitive load means like if I put a bug in the system, I couldn't still do mistakes. But I did this mistake in the last 20 minutes, in the last 2 days. It's something that I can still remember. And so lower cognitive load, I don't have so much things to remember. I can learn a lot more faster. And then you can have even more ideas and stuff like this. Only little problem here is just like sometimes in some businesses, the delay is specific of the business. Now, there might be seasonings, like if you have fantastic ideas about how to make whiskey, well, it might take a long time for the market to appreciate it. So not every business is a startup. Okay, but it's part of the economic sector you're in. So the delay is part of the feedback cycle, but the length of the delay is actually affecting a lot the behavior of the people inside the system. So long story short, one of the great laws of life that I found out is actually this one. Just like people would not improve a system if they are not planning to stay around long enough to see the benefits. Put in another way, if you get a hotel room which is of a horrible color, you keep the bad color because you're going to sleep there only for 3 nights. But if you're living in an apartment for 3 months, maybe you're starting to think about repenting. If you buy the house, you're repenting immediately. So, and this is affecting the way we work because well, some contractors, they might have long-term expectation, or it might be the other way around. People writing code are building a system which is going to be maintainable in the long term, but the CEO is planning an exit. So the whole idea about keeping the technical debt low is, well, somebody else is going to pay my technical debt. It's not my problem. Okay, so we got to see who has time is important, who has the shortest expectation of life inside the system is actually constraining the possibility of evolution. Let's get back to the DevOps and to the difference between quick and fast performers. So what the difference is 400 times faster, you make a lot of changes for triggering continuous improvement. But if you are 400 times slower, and you're not playing in the system, that could be even harder. Like, it takes 6 months to see a change in this organization. I have a 3-month contract. What's the outcome? I basically don't give a shit. And yeah, it just stopped improving. You don't even think about improving. Who cares? Somebody else's problem. So, little homework. Try to do this check on some topics like refactoring. Is it paying off? When I'm going to see the improvement in the system? Who is going to see the improvement in the system? Something about the quality of the code is valuable only if you are there for appreciating it. And there's something that might sound like a big lie if you consider these temporal coordinates. Okay, this was something that I saw in some scenario. I was talking with the boss. The boss was asking, well, whenever my team asks anything, I try to fulfill the request. Okay, and then the people in the team were saying like, it is so annoying and exhausting to talk with this guy that we only ask something when we know that they cannot say no. So it might be really, really hard to see the reality through this area. I'm going to give you a couple of scenarios to clarify the last point. This is one company that I call the sadness machine. And the sadness machine scenario worked like this. Like they had a product team working on new features. And they were working on, their release cycle was 9 months. After 9 months, they passed the baby to the national team that were doing the nationalization for local regulation. After those 6 months, they were passing the code to the site teams that had a 6-month-long installation and customization process. So the overall lead time was 1 year and 9 months, and when I understood this, I went to the CTO. I said, like, well, look, I would never work in a place like that. Is this the way you're working? Yes, that's the way we're working. That's insane. No, that's the way we're working. yeah, again, that's insane. Morning after, the best developers gave their resignation request, quit the company. So I was right, but that was not exactly a nice scenario. Anyway, talking about the pink check, autonomy. No autonomy. You cannot deliver value independently. You always are dependent from somebody else. Mastery. Well, doesn't really matter. It's going to be my fault or somebody else's fault depending on politics. They won't catch me. I may probably leave in the company anyway. What is the purpose? Yeah, that was a thing. Like, they were prevented from having one. So they were users. They had no idea who the users were. The first team, the user, was the second team. And the second team was just delivering something for the third team. Who the hell is going to tell you thank you in this organization? So I was trying to see the positive feedback. And yes, it was kind of, 15 months between, on average, between coding something and having somebody enjoying the value of my code. No direct contact with the end user, not a single meeting, not a single, yes, I'm the person that wrote this code. Oh, thank you, that helped me. Now I can go home a little bit more safer here, whatever. We are writing code for helping people, not for making them suffer. And then releasing to a middleman. Oh, yeah, I can see your code is just following the specification, blah, blah, blah. Wow, that's fantastic. Just like, no, it's not good feedback. Talking about the negative feedback, oh, well, this was going fast as hell. So could happen at any time for any possible reason. Like, oh, your code is not well formatted. Oh, the people in the other team, they don't like it. Or, oh, there's a bug in production for something that you wrote 2 years ago. Or for something that your colleague wrote 2 years ago because you're the only person around. Okay. So the thing that started to be interesting here, like, the positive feedback had kind of 1.5 years delay on average, while the negative was happening all the time. And let's visualize it. Let's see how it could happen. I call it a reward deprivation system because the only positive feedback was at the end of the story, but then at random moment, you had all the possible bad feedback loop. And so no possibility of having a thank you, but all the possibilities at the random moment to get, oh, it was your fault, or you have to fix this one, you have to work in the weekend. Well, fantastic. Would you ever work in a place like this? For me, it's clearly obvious. No, not a single day. Just like I would pretend to be an opossum, pretend that I'm dead on the floor. No. Second scenario, that's a bank. Microservices architecture was going to save the day, maybe. And so my friends were developing a service, and they were running on top of 12 external services, synchronously. They tried to negotiate for, can we be asynchronous? No, it has to be synchronous. And you have an SLA, so your uptime, all of the stuff should be, you should be working, 99.9 something percent. And they told me, we never seen the other system up together at the same time ever in the last 6 months. So there's something which is not really right here. So what about the autonomy? No, a dozen of enemies. What about the mastery? I'm building on top of a sand. I could be good, but I'm building on shaky ground. Doesn't really matter. What is the purpose? Survival or blaming somebody else? Anticipating the blame, saying that, those guys. So the context map for this one is actually something like this, and I don't think the conformist by itself can actually capture the situation. So yesterday Eric Evans was looking for some new pattern to add to the context map, and I think this one is a good representation. Because when we are exactly there, well then, okay, so can you have a positive feedback loop? No, because really low probability of working. The feedback loop positively, today it worked. Let's have a party, but that's not what you're expected to do. Again, well, no direct contact with the end user. Looks like we are in quarantine or something. Well, might be, poisonous. Again, working on specification, and releasing to a middleman. Oh, yes, that's kind of a part of every good recipe here. Talking about the negative feedback anytime, doesn't know reason, after every release, or no or little control on the reason, always disconnected. So that's an architectural choice. That's defining the workplace. What is the workplace now? Wow, this is the workplace. Yeah, that's a place where the dominant emotion in any working day is fear, or let's drink something to forget that we are under this pressure. So the recruitment moment could be something like this. Well, this job will allow you to experience a continuous state of fear, anger, and guilt, not to mention frustration and despair too. So the thing, okay, let me be more explicit here. Like, developers are totally okay in paying for their own mistakes. It's in my bounded context. I wrote an idiot couple of lines of code. I will fix them. I can even fix them in the weekend because I care about this code. But they hate paying for somebody else's ones. It's my mistake. I will cover up. It's somebody else. Oh, come on, what those bastards. And when talking about bounded context, we're not only talking about language. I think we're talking about a few other things, which are safety, responsibility, and ultimately pride. So, talking about loosely coupled, how does it match with autonomy? We might be something like, how many meetings do we need to agree on something? How this is affecting purpose? How many external systems are we depending upon? Are we really autonomous? Are we really confident in the results? How many trade-offs are we going to? And what is the perception of ourselves? And we are actually building these things in terms of architecture choices, in terms of definition, in terms of enforced collaboration, the customer table that becomes a microservices and everybody's depending on top of it. It's just like, well, that's a great blame game party creator. It's already like this by design. So yeah, just take a look at this part. So a few stories. I could tell a lot more, but there are some building blocks which are relevant. So I'm actually getting to what is my summary. So thing number one is buy a copy of this book. Now it's no longer fresh, but it's still good. And well, Christmas is not yet just next morning, but buy a copy for your boss too. Under the tree, secret package from Amazon, yeah, maybe that could be okay. The second takeaway for me is exactly the reason for the picture and the title of the talk, which is everything is connected. Like, it's not only software architecture, it's not only process, it's not only organization design. Everything is connected. It's Conway slow, but not only that. Just like some organizations are such a bad architecture that they are trying to compensate this with process. We need a way to coordinate our project managers because they are interacting lost in so many meetings. And that's because you have a database at the center of everything and you are afraid of breaking somebody else's code. It's architecture, it's not process many times. And maybe you did that because you were recruiting juniors instead of seniors at the very beginning. So everything is connected. The second thing is emotions matters. So if your workplace is a place where you are anxiously waiting for the next bug to pop up in your Jira system or on Slack or whatever, that's not a nice place to work with, to work in. And the other thing which is happening now is, well, how much mobility there is in the job market for software developers. And people were actually leaving after a workshop after they realized this boat is sinking, goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. And there are other options. Why should I save your boat? I mean, I was your slave, and why should I? But if you're working for good reason, if you're trying to improve the system, yes, I repeat this one. Your architectural choices will shape the interaction and the culture. And this is where, yeah, remember the bus. And this is where even microservices and or bounded context could turn actually really, really good. Because yes, they are still a unit of language consistency. They're also a unit of purpose. That's one of the tricky things the idea was to have bounded contexts, was also to have models that turn out to be simple because they had a single purpose. And to get to a single purpose, you try to speak with the smallest possible number of stakeholders. It turns out that this is also a good unit of our responsibility for the team. But the other thing which is happening is also a good unit of pride. I'm doing good stuff in here. This piece of code should be running no matter what. The other thing is how much safety matters. I mean, seeing one of the best teams in Italy turn into, yeah, let's get away from here in a few months, it made me think like how much fragility was actually embedded in things that were working, and then you change a little ingredient, and the same fantastic team is actually fleeing away. So providing an environment where you can not be at the mercy of somebody else. I would say the consequences of the conformist are underestimated. A conformist can actually kill some of the best team if applied badly or forced over something. The second last thing is if you want to make good code, think about the horizon alignment. Like, as I said, you might have organizations that have a long-term plan, but they are hiring contractors that have only a 3-6 months expectancy on the project anyway. They are not going to leave you great code because they are not going to be there maintaining. They're going to do the best code for the purpose of their team, more or less, and it has nothing to do with their ability. Or if you might get into more long-term partnership with some contractors, or you might think about having an internal team. But the thing about the timing, the bad news is just the shorter horizon wins. It might be the short-term contractor leaving bad code to the organization, which thinks they are thinking long-term, but they are not. Or it might be the other way around. Developers trying to write the best possible code, but companies working for the end of quarter, financial timing, and then, yes, add feature, add feature, add feature. Unfortunately, the shortest time span wins, is dominating in choices. The final thing is the good news that I put somewhere in this flow, which is the thing which is maximizing the positive feedback loop, and the reason people are starting to make good code and repeatedly started to add good code is actually see the purpose, finding the people that you can make happy or put in better shape, and that is probably the best indicator of, well, we are not using microservices or the newest technologies, but then still sticking with this team because we are delivering value, because we are doing good stuff for users, and that's a good place to stay. Because there is no distance between my code and the positive effect and from the person that could tell me thank you, and that's the best indicator of something. So we are in the position to do something for our workplace. We are in a position to do something for the architecture. We are in the position for designing the interaction between teams and between our developers or ourselves and the rest of the people in the organization. And I think that's totally worth the investment. So that's my final message. Go for a thank you. And this is my big thank you to you. And yes, that's all of it. Yeah.